Welcome to Kermode Uncut. We're here at the Latitude Festival with Paul Greengrass, director of United 93 and the Bourne movies. Paul, we've just done an on-stage sort of retrospective of your career, and at the end of it I said, and not ironically, that I actually owe whatever success I have as a critic to you, because I wrote a glowing review of a very early film of yours called Resurrected.
Which
I absolutely love.
I think I owe my career to you, because you gave me a good review.
But what happened was, when you then turned
it was on the poster.
It was on the poster. It was the first poster I was ever quoted on. I was very proud of it. But what was really lovely was, at the time, I think people thought, oh, he's gone out on a limb and he doesn't really know what he's talking about. But then, since you then became the stellar success that you are, it makes me look really prescient. It makes it look like, look, he spotted Paul Greengrass more through accident than design. So I'd like to say firstly, thank you.
Oh, that's very kind.
But I also like to offer you a little moment to tell me how grateful you are to me to starting your career.
Well, you did, and it's funny when you. It's funny you look back on, my journey as we were talking on the stage was, my 20s. I was in sort of current affairs documentaries, television, really, but I had a secret desire to make films, and that came out when I was about 30 when I made Resurrected. And looking back, I knew nothing about filmmaking. I mean, I knew how to make documentaries, how to shoot, but I'd never worked with actors. I'd never engaged with the process of sort of dramatic storytelling. And but weirdly, I remember the experience of making that, what was a small film finding a deep sense of sort of peace. I can only call it that, feeling that I was in a place that I really belonged in. And isn't it strange? Because I actually was all at sea. You know what I mean? I'd never knowingly talked to actors in my life. I'd never worked with actors in my life. That was my first experience.
David
Hughes, well, he always teases me because I was, for my gauche sort of habits, because I didn't know how it was done. So I was sort of, I had half of it, the shooting bit I was confident about. I didn't even know really much about how a film was structured. I remember the first AD on that film was a man called Waldo Rogue, who was Nick Rogue's son. And I remember on the first day, I said to Waldo quietly, who sort of was very kind to me and was sort of taking me, but I said, well, just tell me, what does the first AD do? And he said, see that bloke over there? Suppose you really didn't like him and you really wanted to fire him, you'd say to me, can you fire that bloke? He said, and I'd go over and fire him, and then afterwards you go over and commiserate with him. So it was a huge sort of learning curve, and when I look back on it, things about it that as a piece of filmmaking that make me kind of think I really didn't know very much. But as I say, I, for all of that, I remember vividly feeling, oh yeah, this is much more than I'd ever felt in my 20s. I felt that was what I was meant to do.
Do you care what critics think about your movies? Because an awful lot of filmmakers just completely ignore reviews.
I think that some critics I do read pretty carefully and try and take on board, not in a craven way, but obviously, people, like yourself, and I mean, I won't name them because it's not fair, but maybe it is. But there are, I would say, half a dozen critics in the UK that are really, really insightful and have a broad knowledge, because you're seeing all the movies. Do you know what I mean? It's part of the ongoing dialogue. I mean, filmmaking is, as I say, it's a collaborative process. So you listen to what people have to say.
Okay. And last thing, because we're halfway through the year, I always do kind of half-term report of best and worst of the year so far. What have you seen this year that you've really liked?
Well, I loved La La Land. I know it won lots of awards. I thought it was many things, La La Land. I thought it was just a hugely beautiful film. He's got an absolutely beautiful eye. But what he has is, in the modern cinema, he's found a way of being fluid, but not chaotic. You know what I mean? He's found a new sort of place. Because I think that, look, and I was responsible for some of this, sort of pushing so hard that it's like a piece of music. It builds and builds and builds, and it's like you can't build forever. You've got to reset, but you can't reset to a kind of classical place, because a modern audience grown up with mobile phones won't accept images that are that static. I think that can be quite hard, and I thought that La La Land and also Hell or High Water found a place for the modern commercial cinema, you know, where fluidity found a new place. It was a sort of more appropriate for our times, I felt, you know.
Paul, it's been lovely. Thanks ever so much for doing the On Stage. I remain your greatest fan, and
that's great.
I still remember Resurrected so fondly, because I just remember seeing it and thinking, this guy is really good, and I'm really glad that you proved me right.
Oh, you're very kind. Well, thank you, Mark. Thank you. It meant a lot to me.